Piers Morgan launched a blistering takedown of David Walliams after the comedian revealed he was probably non-binary. Piers Morgan used his column to hit out at David Walliams after the comedian spoke openly about his gender identity and sexuality during a podcast appearance. While chatting with Australian host Josh Sheps on the Uncomfortable Conversations with Josh Sheps podcast, David shared that, had the language around gender been as it is now when he was a teenager, he would have probably identified as non-binary. I think it's interesting. I find change interesting. The Little Britain star said when discussing the evolution of gender identity over the past decade. He added, I wrote a book called The Boy in the Dress 15 years ago, which was sort of seen as a bit more daring then, and it's always something I've always felt like celebrating difference on, so I've always thought it's exciting. Reflecting on his own identity, David continued, I sort of think, where would I be positioning myself maybe if I was now 19 or 20? Because I went to Bristol University and did a drama degree. And I think that course is where you're probably, if there's a group of people who are going to be most interested in that sort of area, most drawn to that area, it's probably going to be drama students. When Josh asked, what do you think you would be doing if you were 19? David responded, I don't know. I think in a way I'd probably say I'm non-binary. I think. Probably. I don't know exactly. In response to David's comments, Piers Morgan criticized him, suggesting that his statements reflected confusion and labeled him as two-faced. In his column at The Sun, Piers wrote, talking of talent show judges, XBGT star David Walliams has revealed he's probably non-binary. This confusing, two-faced state of mind could also apply to the duplicitous Little Burke's judging, where he was obsequiously flattering contestants while he thought he was on air, only to be caught on a hot mic cruelly mocking and abusing them when he thought he wasn't. In 2022, Piers took to X, formerly Twitter, to label David as one of the nastiest frauds in TV after leaked audio recordings exposed the comedian making derogatory comments about Britain's Got Talent contestants. In the leaked recordings, David referred to one elderly contestant as a C***T 3 times and made crude sexual comments about another, saying, she thinks you want to F***K her, but you don't. He also made several other inappropriate remarks. Piers and David had a long-running feud, which reportedly began when David liked a series of cruel tweets about him. Piers told the Mirror that he has always refused to return to Britain's Got Talent because David was still on it. Piers Morgan, never one to shy away from voicing his opinions, has launched a scathing critique of comedian David Walliams following Walliams' recent comments about his gender identity. The comedian, best known for his work on Little Britain and his former role as a judge on Britain's Got Talent, BGT, spoke openly about his evolving views on gender during an appearance on the Uncomfortable Conversations with Josh Sheps podcast. However, Morgan, a vocal critic of modern discussion surrounding gender and identity, seized the opportunity to reignite their long-standing feud. During his podcast interview, Walliams reflected on how the cultural landscape around gender identity has shifted significantly over the past 2 decades. He revealed that, had the current language and understanding of gender existed during his youth, he might have identified as non-binary. I think it's interesting, Walliams said, referencing the societal changes. I wrote a book called The Boy in the Dress 15 years ago, which was seen as daring at the time. But for me, it was always about celebrating difference. If I were 19 or 20 now, I might position myself as non-binary. Probably. I don't know exactly. Walliams' musings on identity highlighted his openness to self-reflection and exploration, particularly in an era that increasingly challenges traditional gender norms. However, his comments did not sit well with Piers Morgan, who used his platform in The Sun to deliver a fiery rebuttal. Morgan, who has been vocal in his disdain for what he describes as woke culture, dismissed Walliams' comments as confusing and accused him of opportunism. In his column, he wrote, XBGT star David Walliams has revealed he's probably non-binary. This confusing, two-faced state of mind perfectly mirrors his judging style on the show, He was all smiles on camera, but was caught on a hot mic making cruel, abusive remarks about contestants. Morgan referred to a 2022 controversy when leaked audio revealed Walliams making derogatory remarks about contestants on Britain's Got Talent. Among other remarks, Walliams allegedly called an elderly contestant C***** T and made inappropriate comments about a female contestant, sparking widespread backlash. Morgan's column went further, calling Walliams a duplicitous little Burke and accusing him of using gender identity discussions as a way to rehabilitate his tarnished reputation. The feud between Walliams and Morgan is not new. It reportedly began years ago when Walliams liked a series of disparaging tweets about Morgan, leading to public animosity. Morgan, who once expressed interest in returning to Britain's Got Talent, stated that he refused to do so while Walliams was still a judge. In 2022, Morgan took to social media to brand Walliams as one of the nastiest frauds in TV after the leaked recordings emerged. Walliams stepped down from his role on BGT later that year, but the animosity between the two men has continued to simmer. The latest exchange between Morgan and Walliams has sparked a polarizing reaction among fans and commentators. Supporters of Walliams praised his honesty and willingness to engage in complex discussions about identity, while Morgan's critics accused him of perpetuating outdated views and bullying behavior. On the other hand, Morgan's fans applauded his no-holds-barred approach, arguing that he raised valid points about Walliams' past behavior and questioned the authenticity of his statements. One Twitter user wrote, "David Walliams has every right to explore his identity, but Piers Morgan isn't wrong to call out his hypocrisy given his track record on BGT." Others, however,